You know that moment where you almost go for it, but your brain pulls the emergency brake? That's not fear, it's our nervous system trying to keep you cozy and small. Let's talk about why your brain plays defense and how you need to move through it so you can actually ask for what you want. Welcome to How to Get What You Want. This podcast is for driven women ready to claim their goals and navigate their careers with clarity and confidence. Join me as we explore real stories, tools, and strategies to help you steer your career exactly where you want to go. Let's get started on helping you get what you want. Hey there, I am so happy that you made the choice to be with me today. It's a good one, and it's something that we may not be paying much attention to because it can be really subtle, but it's really true. And it's funny, I was about to record this episode and I got distracted and I was looking on my phone and I saw a quote on LinkedIn that said, "The cost of holding on is higher than the discomfort of letting go." And I thought there's this tension between what we want and getting it. And there's a lot of evidence that says that we are kind of our own worst enemy as it relates to this because our brain wants to create safety for us. And so it preemptively anticipates something that could be discomfort for us, and it can be quick. You know how those thoughts go in our head. It can be quick to tell us why we can't. I remember listening to a podcast one time when they were talking about this whole idea, and they said, pay attention to this. You're thinking about, oh gosh, I would love to be a podcast host, or I'd love to be on a podcast. And watch what happens. Your brain will start to give you instantaneously the reasons why you can't. I don't have time. I don't have the experience. I don't have anything valuable to say. It's amazing how quickly our brain can support us taking the easy road and not taking the difficult road. And there's so much evidence around this. I pulled a couple of things on the research side, and it's really cognitive bias. And you've probably heard of that. It's your brain constantly balancing this risk and reward. And faced with uncertainty, it defaults to the option that feels safer, even when risk of staying can be bigger than leaving. So people will stay in a job that they don't love their boss because they're afraid of the unknowns. I think about that with like where I live. I think about wanting to move, but there's some neighbors that I may not like. I luckily don't think they listen here, so I think I'm safe. But I often think it could be worse. At least I know them. It's that idea of, oh, that is one thing that could get in my way. Then there's loss aversion, why we fear loss more than we value gain. Our brains hate losing more than it enjoys winning. So it hates that idea of losing. We don't look at it as an opportunity to learn. So we teach our brain that we don't want to lose. One example here is somebody avoids a negotiation for a raise because of the fear of rejection feels stronger to them than the benefit that it would ask. Now think about that tension, like we can all understand that, like asking and moving through that feels a little bit more uncomfortable than getting what we really want. Our brain also likes the familiar and we like to stay safe in what we know. It's that regular understanding that this is our peer, this is our leader. We know what we learn the habits of how do we stay safe and get by, and that just feels better. And then the last piece of evidence around the fact that our brain is working against us is this regret aversion. We avoid decisions that feel risky. It's kind of the same thing, but we don't want to look back and regret it. That because we can live with it so long, gosh, I can sure relate to that. I could give you 5 things right now that I could look at and go and just be regretful that I didn't do it. And so that idea that once you leave something, you may regret that loss instead of really appreciating where you are It's that idea of the grass is always greener, right? We're always looking at it must be better over here, but we're afraid to go. And so we don't know what that is, but we're afraid to leave where we are. Oh my gosh, it's so crazy. And I think one of the reasons I really wanted to bring this up is I was working with a client this week who I just started working with her. I've known her for a while. I've just started working with her. And one of the things that she said she wanted to work on is she wanted to get out more. She wanted to make sure that her voice was being heard. And she needed to feel comfortable on stage because of the level that she's at. It's expected. So I said to her, have there been some opportunities that have come up for you? And she goes, yeah, just, this week I had two conferences that had reached out to me about doing a presentation. I said, "What'd you say?" And she said, I said, "No." She goes, "I always say no. It's my default." And I'm like, "Well, you're not gonna get that experience." She's like, "Well, I'm not ready. I don't really know what I wanna say." And we worked through it and decided that instead of making the first step no, which just completely closes the door, make the first door yes, get it, and then we'll figure it out together. And I'll help you through. I said, "I will write it for you. I will practice it with you. I will give you everything you need. You just need that exposure." But it was so easy for her to just say, "I just say no. I need to do all these things before I'm ready." I have another client, he was up for a promotion, and they kept talking about it. He was up for it, but they kept talking about it and was going in circles about it, and he just didn't wanna push it, that his boss had brought it up, and he was, like, kind of sitting back waiting for it to come back around, and so he, went 6 months without saying something after that happened, and his colleague got promoted, and he went to his boss right away and was like, "Hey, what's up with this?" And she was like, "Well, I didn't know that you were really that into it because you didn't really say anything. You didn't follow up with it. And this came up and this person raised their hand, literally like raised their hand." And he was like, "Oh, if I had only looked at and not just assumed it was going to come back to me." He didn't want to go back to her and say, "Hey, where are we on this?" He thought it would be more stressful to her. So he stayed stuck where he was. And he just has so much regret around that now because what happened is there's only so many promotions that can go in a cycle. That was what he was told. So now he has to wait for the next one to come around. And who knows what the conditions will be then. So it was really something that he learned that he needed to get beyond himself, to have courage, to be thoughtful about when those voices come in your head, how do you get them to turn around so that you're able to move forward instead of really stopping yourself in your tracks? And I had a friend who was asked to be on a panel, and she said, "Why me? I don't have a great story. I don't know what value I would bring to this group." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, you have such a great amount of value." And I told her exactly, like, "This is what you need to talk about. These are the points you need to this audience needs to hear from you." And it wasn't a week later that I was faced with a similar situation where somebody had asked me to be a part of a panel. And it was so interesting to experience in my own mind how quickly the self doubt came into my head. Why me? Why my story? Why now? And it was because of that other woman that I had just coached that allowed me to see in the mirror that I was inhibiting my ability to move forward because I wanted to be psychologically safe. I didn't want to put myself out there. I didn't want people to go, "Why is she worthy to be up there?" Not that they would, but we believe that we have this great intelligence around knowing what the perceptions of others are. But guess what? We can't read other people's minds. We think we do, but we don't. But we allow ourselves to be inhibited by those beliefs that we have. Our brain is trying to protect us. Our brain doesn't want us to move forward, and we're risk averse. We don't want to look back and regret. There's so many things that get in that way that we can rationalize. And that's what I want you to really hear in this is I want you to start paying attention to when this happens to you. And it can be really obvious, but you have to shine a light on it because it can be really nuanced. It can be something that is just a thought that goes through your head that allows you to just say, you know what? I would love to write a book, but I'm just not a writer. And then that's the end of the story right there. So, what are you telling yourself? What is your brain doing to keep you safe? Where you should take the risk, you should move forward, you could see how it is, and then you can deal with the ramifications of was that the right decision or not, but don't regret not moving forward. So here's some things to consider, some smart ways of looking at how to be smarter than your brain, which is hard to do, right? But how do you outsmart it? Because as you think about these strategies, you're resetting your brain to be aware of these voices. I can hear them a lot clearer now that I have this recognition that I am my own worst enemy as I move through. It doesn't mean that I don't sometimes believe them and allow myself to stay safe, but it's an important thing to be aware of because then you can see when it's happening to you. So the first tip I want you to think about is use the 6-month test. When you're facing a decision, and this will probably be something that is really an obvious one to you, a big decision. Should I apply for this job? Should I say yes to the recruiter and I'll move forward? Should I go for something that feels a little bit outside of what is comfortable to you? Ask yourself, if I don't take action, how will I feel about this in 6 months? Let that sit for a minute. And why the reason that works is when we can see ourselves in the future, we can give ourselves a little bit of a mindset that's more objective to be able to look back on ourselves today. So the next time that you're faced with something that is giving you pause, that's making you feel uncomfortable, ask yourself that question. If I don't take action, how will I feel in 6 months? And even think about what is 6 months from now? In October, when it's starting to snow and I'm thinking back, how would I feel about this? For me, it's like a speaking engagement or something that somebody asked me to do. And so there's often a date to it. So it's really easy for me to go, looking back, I'd already been done and I have that experience. So it's a really great test to do. So that's the first one. The second one is to think about reframing to yourself. How can you start to look at risks as leverage, not as a threat, but looking at it as an opportunity and start to go, oh, that's interesting. I don't have experience in this, but if I move forward, I'll be able to figure it out. I can ask others for help. And then this is a great experience for me. It's great exposure. So looking at it from a positive perspective, think about what would your best friend say? How would they say, hey, listen, yes, it feels really uncomfortable, but just do it. Go for it. See how it feels. Move forward. So try to identify that moment and how do you reframe it to yourself as a leveraged opportunity instead of a risk? And then the third one is how can you give yourself some data to alleviate those fears? How can you gather facts instead of letting emotion prevail? And maybe it's if you're looking at a salary increase, maybe it's getting some market intelligence so that you can be really bold about that number. Maybe it's looking at when you're thinking about presenting in front of a group, what data do you have that says they will doubt your expertise or not think that your story was inspirational? What is the data? What is the evidence? What your doubt, the risk that you're identifying is really true. Whew. Those are good ones to identify for yourself, to get your brain to look at it differently. It's like when somebody asks you to look at the business case. I always, especially when I first started learning how to look at the business, I always missed a lot. I didn't look at the data. I didn't look at it the right way. I didn't look broad enough. This is what this is doing. Look at that 6-month test. How can you say how will I look back on this in 6 months? How can I reframe this not as a risk, but as an opportunity? And then what data do I have that really supports the fear that I feel? Emotions are based in not facts, not data. They find their oomph from allowing your body to prevail over your head because those signs of anxiety start in your body. So, how can you give yourself some facts to move through? It's a really important thing to think about because our brain is always defaulting to this playing it safe. But there's such power in finding the challenge in whatever you're facing. And great negotiators know this. When they go for what they want, when they're really focused on how to frame it to themselves, even when they feel nervous, they know how to shift their mindset to move through. And it's important to raise your hand. Raise your hand and allow yourself to just say, why not me? When an opportunity is in front of you, how do you just say yes and figure it out later and not let your brain give you all the reasons why not? So I want you to think about, how are you going to apply this in the next week for you? What do you see that's coming up that you look at that feels a little uncomfortable? And how are you going to can move through it? Pay attention to those voices in your head, the ones that give you some really strong data that you believe in the moment. But when you look back, you're like, ugh, that was just a bunch of doubt. That was just a bunch of emotion. I need to look at this objectively. And if that you are facing something that you are feeling apprehensive about, reach out to somebody to help them have you see it objectively, clearly, and help you see the value you bring in this. That's the first step to do. If you have somebody from the outside, they can give you those words, and then pay attention to what they see that you didn't see so that you can start using those tips on a regular basis. This is a good one to consider. And it's being an observer of yourself to know how this may be getting in the way of what you want, what you need, and that adopting a negotiator mindset looks at these things that get in our way that help us play it safe. When that doesn't make us grow, develop, or move forward in any way in our career. I'd love to hear from you. If you know somebody that's playing it safe, forward this to them. Say, I was thinking of you. It's a win-win. And see and challenge them to not play it safe and be there for them, be their advocate, and they can do the same for you. Have a buddy. Make this a priority for you so that you don't miss opportunities that are probably hiding in plain sight. If you want to join my newsletter, I'd love for you to do that. Go to negotiationlove.com. I go a little deeper, share some more stories, and just try to inspire to give you some ways of looking at your world from a different lens. Because, negotiation is more than a skill, it is truly a mindset. Until next time, I'm Susie. I'll see you then.